What is up, guys? My name is Eli, and I'm here today to talk about my favorite Argent Saga deck. The deck I'm referring to has been dubbed Air Bears by my dear friend Adam, who you might know as fellow YouTuber Argos Anonymous. There's been some discussion lately as to the power level Air has in the current meta. I'm here to tell you why Air has been overlooked. Air has largely been ignored and disregarded as the weakest element in the game. I can't speak for everyone else out there, but in my local LGS, that idea is far from the truth. I hope to prove otherwise in future tournaments, but the year is 2020, and it's hard to play Argent Saga in person. That said, the deck I'm going to be talking about now, or a version of it, I recently played at a Saga Showcase, hosted at my local LGS. I wish I could say I did better than I did, but I didn't lose the match until the quarterfinals. I took fourth, and if people want, I would gladly break down the Saga Showcase event, but anyways, I took fourth place, and I felt my deck and playstyle needed a little more work. And that is why I'm here today to tell you about my new and improved Air Bears, or as I like to call them, Angry Air Bears. The main changes I made to my showcase, the most important one that is, was the inclusion of a card I overlooked. Many of you are familiar with the card Reprobloom. This card has an awesome ability that says whenever this card becomes targeted by a spell or ability, create 2 experimental tokens. This is easily accomplished in this deck because my champion is Ariana, Adventurer of Argos. It says, at the beginning of the game, after mulligans, you're allowed to search your deck for Ariana's Amulet and a Kala. So, because of that, you're guaranteed to have a 1-drop that on turn 2, you'll be able to use its ability to make something immortal to target the Reprobloom, making 2 more tokens. In addition to this, I added 2 Great Behemoths. These are important because even though they're a 5-drop unit, they essentially cost 1, because it has a cool effect that makes them cost less for every unit you control with cost 2 or less. So let me walk you through this. Turn 1, play a Kala. Turn 2, play your Reprobloom. So, on their turn, sacrifice Kala, target Reprobloom. So its ability is in the queue. With its ability in the queue, you Soul Burst, target it, make 2 more, let it resolve, return to your hand, let its other ability resolve, and you end up with 4 0-drop 1000 experiments. Now, the cool thing about this isn't just that you have 4 units that are 1000 that can attack the next turn. What's really cool is if turn 3, you either have a Tutor or a Great Behemoth in your hand, because if you have either of those cards, you can drop a Great Behemoth and turn those 1000 experiments into 2000 experiments and start destroying towers as early as turn 3. Now, that isn't going to work out perfectly every game, so that's why I play other cards and strategies that I feel synergize very well together. Now, my spirit, which I don't think I've talked about yet, Kyte the Air Spirit, is very well known for its bouncing shenanigans. So I run a hefty Kyte bounce package, as I call it. One of the most important cards that I run in this package, Skytree Command Center. This card says every time a unit is returned to your hand from the field, put a counter on it. It also has the ability to exhaust, remove any number of counters from this card, and put into play a unit with cost equal to the number of counters removed this way. This is a powerful effect, and I'll explain how to utilize that in a minute. In the meantime, I'll talk about some good cards that synergize well with that. So for removal, I run 3 Hurricane Shots. These are great because they allow us to potentially save one of our own units, because as an additional cost to play this, you need to return an air unit from the field to your hand. And it also gives us the ability to kill just about anything. Well, it gives us the ability to kill anything with cost 4 or less. And in doing so, we fuel our command center by returning units to our hand. In addition to that, I run 3 Tornado Shots because 1-drop removal is very rare in this game, and we would like to take advantage of that wherever we can. So 3 of those. All right. Continuing on with our bounce package, I run 1 Monarch Dagger. If you're not familiar with Air, which wouldn't surprise me, this card allows for free activations of Kyte. Normally, Kyte requires you to discard a card to activate its ability. This card allows you to get around that built-in card disadvantage from Kyte. Dagger says, whenever an air unit is returned to your hand from the field, return this card from your discard zone to your hand. So this is important for many reasons. One, it allows us to activate Kyte freely as long as we have an air unit. If you play a command center on turn 1, you can start accumulating counters on it every turn by returning your 1-cost Kala, which, remember, we're guaranteed to have every game because of our champion. So we're allowed to return that 1-drop to our hand every single turn, putting counters on our command center. So this brings me to another important card in our deck, and that would be Sylphia. Because Dagger allows us to freely activate Kyte, we can essentially board wipe our opponent every turn for 3 mana, because we play 4 mana for Sylphia, we activate Kyte, return it to our hand, and we recover a shard. So, remember how earlier I mentioned the Skytree command centers as being an important card? Well, say it's turn 5, you have your command center out, and it's been out all game. Say it has 4 or 5 counters on it. Your opponent has a full board. Instead of necessarily casting Sylphia on your turn, which you could do if you wanted to, and then kite it back to your hand, you can pass the turn to your opponent, and when they say move to combat, you can activate your Skytree command center and drop in a Sylphia on their turn. It's important to note that command center doesn't say that you can only activate it on your turn, so you can activate it anytime you have priority, including on your opponent's turn. So, say you drop your Sylphia on their turn. Now, a lot of people would be worried, well, you drop it on turn 5, they're just going to kill it. Well, remember who our champion is. We start the game with Kalas in our hand, so the odds are pretty good that we're going to have a Kala in play, so even if they have a removal spell, we can save it with our Kala, which has the activated ability to sacrifice and make something immortal. And remember back when I was talking about Hurricane Shot as a very utility card? Say your opponent tries to kill your Sylphia, you play Hurricane Shot, bounce it back to your hand, they can't even respond and kill Sylphia because the additional cost to Hurricane Shot is to return a unit to your hand, which is not able to be interacted with. And say you play that on turn 5 after you Sylphia on their turn, you can take out the only remaining unit they may or may not have. Alright, so then we move on to the rest of the deck, which is pretty standard. I run 3 Omega Magic Kazes to protect your towers late game and to get a little extra card draw because they replace themselves. I run 3 Vabriel's Final Gift. And then, like I said, 3 Tornado Shots for additional removal. A funny thing about Tornado Shot. If you have played in the format, then of course you played against Liam. And one of the most annoying things is turn 1, they Soul Burst and get a Sola token that's 2,000. Well, if you have a Tornado Shot in your hand and they go to activate Sola on the end of your turn, there's a priority check after that. So after Sola's ability resolves, you kite your Kala back to your hand, and then you're allowed to play your Tornado Shot because you have 1 shard open from kiting it back to your hand, recovering a shard, thus taking out their Soul Bursted Sola. Alright, rest of the deck. I run 2 additional Kala Trusty Companions because they're fetchable with the next card in the deck, Ariana's Young Prodigy. I run 3 of them. They draw a card when they enter, and they're tutorable with another important spell in our deck. I run, of course, the Omega Ariana. A really, really good card. Underrated. Has target attack unblockable, and a really cool ability that says you can expel it to make your towers indestructible until your next turn. As well, it may say that it's a 4-cost, but the turn it comes into play, it can attack, and it has this neat little ability that says when it attacks, you recover 2 shards, and for each of those shards recovered this way, you draw a card. So you pay 4 for it, recover 2 shards, and draw 2 cards. Incredible value. Alright, I run Garga, Keeper of Gales. This is strictly in here for Helena's tokens and any other deck that is producing mass tokens. And finally, one of the best finishers in this deck that I think goes often overlooked in the way of deck building. Acidic Acid Monger. So this card is great for taking out your opponent's augments, but sometimes they just don't have any augments to destroy, and that, in most decks, means this is a dead card. Well, not in this deck, because you're running 3 Skytree command centers, you're running your Ariana's Amulet, which you start the game with, and you're running your Sky Dagger. So, worst case scenario, this has quickness, but if you're going to play this, you're most likely going to have 2 targets. 2 of your own augments to destroy, to drop this bad boy on turn 5, quickness destroyer, take out 2 of their towers. Oh, and I almost forgot one of the best cards in the deck. Ariana's Resolve. This card costs 2, and it says if your champion has Ariana in its name, you can choose both effects. It says, option 1, search your deck for an Ariana or area unit. Option 2, return target Ariana's Amulet and or call a Trusty companion to play. So you play this, you get an Amulet back out of your graveyard, you get a Kala from your graveyard into play, and then you search your deck for one of your Ariana units. And then once the spell resolves, your Amulet comes into play and arrives and draws you an additional card. I'd say it's essentially a 1-for-4, but it is a 1-for-4. You play 1 card to get 4. 2 into play and 2 into your hand. Now, some members of the Argent Saga Discord were criticizing my recent Saga Showcase deck, saying that 1-for-1 removal in air is just not efficient enough. Well, with cards like Ariana's Resolve, you really don't ever have to worry about running out of cards. This tech can win fast or outpace your opponents through pure value. It all depends on your starting hand. Either you go for the win on turn 4 or 5, or you wait till turn 5 or 6 and outvalue your opponents. Now, most decks don't have the luxury of leaning heavily into multiple win conditions, but with Ariana as our champion, we start the game so far ahead that we can control the game before it ever really begins. We do, after all, start the game with almost a fourth of our deck in our hand. Alright, thanks for watching, guys. This is my first ever YouTube video, so if you liked it, please like, comment, and subscribe for more content. And as always, never underestimate my ability to misplay my way out of a win. Thanks, guys.